Greetings. Well, apocalypse times. It's not the apocalypse. Probably going to fix things a bit. Of reading of Francois Rabelais' Gargantua and Pantagruel, because why not pass the time reading a vast medieval epic about giants? Really, we need more giants. I think the sound is working now, but if it isn't working, somebody should tell me because I just read the first 26 minutes and I don't believe the sound was working. Um, so I'm hoping that it's working now. So this is Gargantua and Pantagruel by Francois Rabelais, and we'll begin with the author's prologue to the first book. Most noble and illustrious drinkers, and you thrice precious pocket-fied blades, for to you and none else do I dedicate my writings, Alcibiades in that dialogue of Plato's, which is entitled The Banquet, whilst he was setting forth the praises of his schoolmaster Socrates, without all question the prince of philosophers, amongst other discourses to that purpose, said that he resembled the saddled ducks, flying goats, thriller hearts, and other such counterfeited pictures at discretion. I did it wrong. I started it wrong. Okay, I'm going to start it again. Most noble and illustrious drinkers, and you thrice precious pocket-fied blades, for to you and none else do I dedicate my writings, Alcibiades in that discourse of Plato's, which is entitled The Banquet, whilst he was setting forth the praises of his schoolmaster Socrates, without all question the prince of philosophers, amongst other discourses to that purpose, said that he resembled the Silines. Silines, of course, were little boxes, like those we may now see in the shops of apothecaries, painted on the outside with wanton toyish figures as harpies, satyrs, bridled geese, horned hares, saddled ducks, flying goats, thriller hearts, and other such counterfeited pictures at discretion, to excite people unto laughter, as Silenus himself, who was the foster father of good Bacchus, was wont to do. But within those capricious caskets were carefully preserved and kept many rich jewels and fine drugs, such as balm, ambergris, amomon, musk, civet, with several kinds of precious stones, and other things of great price. Just another thing was Socrates. For to have his eyes outside and esteemed of him by his exterior appearance, you would not have given the peel of an onion for him, so deformed was he in body and ridiculous in his gesture. He had a sharp pointed nose with the look of a bull and countenance of a fool. He was in his characters in the commonwealth, always laughing, tippling, and merrily carousing to everyone, with continual gibes and jeers, the better by those means to conceal his divine knowledge. Now, opening this box, he would have found within it a heavenly and inestimable drug, a more than human understanding, an admirable virtue, matchless learning, invincible courage, unimitable sobriety, certain contentment of mind, perfect assurance, and an incredible misregard of all that which men commonly do so much watch, run, sail, fight, travel, toil, and turmoil themselves. Whereunto, in your opinion, doth this little flourish of a preamble tend? For so much as you, my good disciples, and some other jolly fools of ease and leisure, reading the pleasant titles of some books of our invention, Pantagruel, Whippet, Fessipine, the dignity of codpieces, of peace and bacon, with a commentary, etc., are too ready to judge that there is nothing in them but jests, mockeries, lascivious discourse, and recreative lies, because the outside, which is the title, is usually without any further inquiry entertained with scoffing and derision. But truly it is very unbeseeming to make so slight account of the works of men, seeing yourselves avouch that it is not the habit makes the monk, many monasterially accoutred, who inwardly are nothing less than monarchal, and that there of those that wear Spanish capes, who have but little of the valour of Spaniards in them. Therefore is it that you must open the book, and seriously consider of the matter treated in it. Then you shall find that it containeth things of far higher value than the box did promise, that is to say, that the subject thereof is not so foolish as by the title at the first sight would appear to be. And put the case that in the literal sense you meet with purposes merry and salacious enough, and consequently very correspondent to their inscriptions, it must not stop there at the melody of the charming sirens, but endeavour to interpret them in a sublimer sense, which possibly you intended to have spoken in the jollity of your heart. Did you ever pick the lock of a cupboard to steal a bottle of wine out of it? Tell me truly, and if you did, call to mind the countenance which then you had. Or did you ever see a dog with a marrow-bone in his mouth? The beast of all others, says Plato in Book 2 of the Republic, the most philosophical. If you've seen him, you might have remarked with what devotion and circumspectness he wards and watcheth it, with what care he keeps it, how fervently he holds it, how prudently he gobbets it, with what affection he breaks it, and with what diligence he sucks it. To what end all this? What moveth him to take all these pains? What are the hopes of his labour? What doth he expect to reap thereby? Nothing but a little marrow. True it is that this little is more savoury and delicious than the great quantities of other sorts of meat, because the marrow, as Galen testifieth, 5 facult nat and 11 de usu partium, is a nourishment most perfectly elaboured by nature. In imitation of this dog, it becomes you to be wise, to smell, to feel, and to have in estimation those fairly goodly books stuffed with high conceptions, which, though seemingly easy in the pursuit, are in the cope and encounter somewhat difficult, and then, like him, you must, by a sedulous lecture and frequent meditation, break the bone and suck out the marrow, that is, my allegorical sense, or the things I to myself propose to be symbols, with assured hope that in doing you will at last attain to be both well advised and valiant by the reading of them. For in the perusal of this treatise you shall find another kind of taste, and a doctrine of a more profound and abstruse consideration, which will disclose unto you the most glorious sacraments and dreadful mysteries, as well as in what concerneth your religion, as matters of the public state and life economical. Do you believe upon your conscience that Homer, while he was accouching his Iliads and Odysseys, had any thought upon these allegories which Plutarch, Heraclides, Ponticus, Eustathius, Cornutus squeezed out of him, and which Politian filched again from them? If you trust it with neither hand nor foot, do you come near to my opinion, which judges them to have been as little dreamed of by Homer as the gospel sacraments were by Ovid in his Metamorphosis. There were certain gulligut friar, Friar Lubin Crocoladon, and true bacon picker would have undertaken to prove it, if perhaps he'd met with as very fools as himself, and as the proverb says it, a lid worthy of such a kettle. If you give no credit thereto, why do you not the same in these jovial chronicles of mine? Albeit when I did dictate them, I thought upon no more than you, who possibly were drinking them whilst I was. For in the composing of this lordly book, I never lost nor bestowed any more nor any other time than what was appointed to serve me for taking of my bodily reflection, that is, whilst I was eating and drinking. And indeed that is the fittest and most proper hour wherein to write these high matters and deep sciences, as Homer knew very well, the paragon of all philologues, and Ennius, the father of the Latin poets, as Horace calls him, although a certain sneaking Juvenal attached that his verses smelled more of the wine than oil. So saith a Turlupin or a new start-up grub of my books, but a turd for him. The fragrant odour of the wine, oh, how much more dainty, pleasant, laughing, wry and pry and fry and celestial and delicious it is than the smell of oil, and I will glory as much when it is said of me that I have spent more on wine than oil, as did Demosthenes, when it was told him that his expense on oil was greater than on wine. I truly hold it for an honour, and praise to be called and reputed a frolic Gualter and a robbing good fellow, for under this name am I welcome in all choice companies of Pantagruelists. It was upbraided to Demosthenes by an envy surly knave that his orations did smell like the sarpler or wrapper of a foul and filthy oil vessel. For this cause interpret you all my deeds and sayings in the perfectest sense. Reverence the cheese-like brain that feeds you with these fair billivizies and trifling jollities, and do what lies in you to keep me always merry. Be frolic now, my lads, cheer up your hearts, and joyfully read the rest, with all the ease of your body and profit of your reins. But hearken, jolt-heads, you Viardises or Dickens take ye, remember to drink a health to me for the like favour again, and I will pledge you instantly. Tutaris meti, Rabelais to the reader. Good friends, my readers, who peruse this book, be not offended whilst it on you look. Denude yourselves of all depraved affection, for it contains no badness nor infection. 'Tis true that it brings forth to you no birth of any value, but in point of mirth, thinking therefore how sorrow might your mind consume, I could no apter subject find. 1 inch of joy surmounts of grief a span, because to laugh is proper to the man. Chapter 1 of the genealogy and antiquity of Gargantua. I must refer you to this great chronicle of Pantagruel for the knowledge of that genealogy and antiquity of race by which Gargantua is come unto us, if you may understand more at large how the giants were born into this world, and how from them by a direct line issued Gargantua, the father of Pantagruel, and do not take it ill. For this time I pass by it, although the subject be such that the oftener it were remembered, the more it would please your worshipful Senores. according to which you have the authority of Plato in Philebo and Gorgias, and of Flaccus, who says that these are some kinds of purposes, such as these are without doubt, which the frequentlier they be repeated, still prove the more delectable. Would to God everyone had as certain knowledge of his genealogy since the time of the Ark of Noah until this age. I think many are at this day emperors, kings, dukes, princes, and popes on the earth whose extraction is from some porters and pardoned peddlers, as on the contrary many are now poor wandering beggars, wretched and miserable, who are descended of the blood and lineage of great kings and emperors, occasioned, as I conceive it, by the transport and revolution of kingdoms and empires, from the Assyrians to the Medes, from the Medes to the Persians, from the Persians to the Macedonians, from the Macedonian to the Romans, from the Romans to the Greeks, from the Greeks to the French. And to give you some hint concerning myself, who speaks to you, I cannot think but I am come of the race of some rich king or prince in former times, for never yet saw you any man that had a greater desire to be a king, and be rich, than I have, and that only that I may make good cheer, do nothing, nor care for anything, and plentifully enrich my friends, and all honest and learned men. But herein do I comfort myself, that in the other world I shall be so, yea, and greater too than at this present I dare wish. As for you, with the same or a better conceit, consolate yourselves in your distresses, and drink fresh if you can come by it. To return to our weathers, I say that by the sovereign gift of heaven, the antiquity and genealogy of Gargantua hath been reserved for use more full and perfect than any other except that of the Messiahs, whereof I mean not to speak, for it belongs not unto my purpose, and the devils, that is to say, the false accusers and dissembled gospellers, will therein oppose me. This genealogy was found by John Andrew in a meadow, which he had near the pole arch, under the olive tree, as you go to Narsay, where, as he was making cast up some ditches, the diggers with their mattocks struck against a great brazen tomb, and unmeasurably long, for they could never find the end thereof, by reason that it entered too far within the sluices of Vienna. Opening this tomb, in a certain place thereof, of a goblet, about which was written in Etrurian letters, Hic bibiter, they found 9 flagons set in such order as they used to rank their kyles in Gascony, of which that was placed in the middle had under it a big, fat, grey, green, pretty small, mouldy little pamphlet, smelling stronger but no better than roses. In that book, the said genealogy was found written at length, in a chancery hand, not in paper, not in parchment, nor in wax, but in the bark of an elm tree, yet so worn with the long tract of time that hardly could 3 letters together there be perfectly discerned. I, though unworthy, was sent for thither, and with much help of these spectacles, whereby the art of reading dim writings and letters that do not clearly appear to the sight is practised, and Aristotle teacheth it, did translate the book as God's desire, and reading the dreadful and horrific acts of Pantagruel. At the end of the book, there was a little treatise entitled The Antidoted Franfeluches, or a Gallimatia of Exceits. The rats and moths, ay, other wicked beasts, had nibbled off the beginning. The rest I have hereto subjoined for the reverence I bear to antiquity. Chapter 2. The Antidoted Franfeluches, or a Gallimatia of extravagant conceits found in an ancient monument. No sooner did the Symbians overcomer pass through the air to shun the dew of summer, but at his coming straight great tubs were filled with pure fresh butter down in showers distilled, wherewith when water was his grandam. Hey, aloud he cried, fish it, sir, I prayed, because his beard is almost all bewrayed, or that he would hold to him a scale he prayed. To lick his slipper, some told he was much better than to gain pardons and the merit greater. In the interim, a crafty chuff approaches. From the depth issued where they fish for roaches. Who said, good sirs, some of them let us save? The eel is here, and in this hollow cave you'll find, if that our looks on it demur, a great waste in the bottom of his fur. To read this chapter when he did begin, nothing but a calf's horns were found therein. I feel, quoth he, the mitre which doth my head so chill it makes my brains take fume of a turnip warmed to stay by chimney hearths himself he armed, provided that a new Thilhos they made of every person on a hair-brained head. They talked the bunghole of St. Noel's or Gilbartha and 1,000 other holes, if they might be reduced to scary stuff, such as might not be subject to the cough, since every man unseemly did it find, to see them gaping thus at every wine, for if perhaps they handsomely were closed for pledges, they to men might be exposed. In this arrest by Hercules the Raven was flayed at her return from Libya haven. What? Why am I not, said Minos, there invited, unless it be myself, not one's omitted, and then it is their mind, I do no more, of frogs and oysters send them any store, in case they spare my life and prove but civil, I give their sale of distaffs to the devil. To quell him, QB, who limping frets at the safe pass of tricky crackerettes, the bolter, the grand Cyclops' cousin, those did massacre, whilst each one wiped his nose. Few ingles in this fallow ground are bred, but on a tanner's mill a winnowed run thither, all of you, the alarms sound clear. You shall have more than you had the last year. Short while thereof to speak, though dismal it should prove, yet was afraid when he saw them in ire, they should overthrow quite flat down the dead empire. He rather choose the fire from heaven to steal, to boats where were red herrings put to sail, than to be calm gainst those who strive to brave us, and to the Masseret's fond words enslave us. All this at last concluded gallantly, in spite of eight and her hern-like thigh, who sitting saw Thessilia taken, in her old age, for a crest-selling queen. Each one cried out, Thy filthy collier toad, doth it become thee to be found abroad? Thou hast the Roman standard filched away, which they in rags or parchment did display. Juno was born, who under the rainbow was a bird catching with her duck below, when her with such a grievous trick they plied, that she had almost been bethwacked by it. The bargain was, that of the throatful she should of Proserpina have 2 eggs free, and if that she thereafter should be found, she to a hawthorn hill should be fast bound. 7 months thereafter, lacking 22, he that at old Carthage town undo, did bravely midst their advance, requiring of them his inheritance. Although they justly made up the division, according to the Shoe-Welts lord's decision, by distributing store of bruise and beef to those poor fellows that did pen the brief. But the year will come, sign of a Turkish bow, 5 spindled yarn, and 3 pot bottoms too, wherein of a discourteous king the dock shall peppered be under an hermit's frock. Ah, that for one she, hypocrite, you must permit so many acres to be lost. Cease, cease, this vizard may become another. Withdraw yourselves unto the serpent's brother. 'Tis in times past that he who is shall reign with his good friends in peace now and again. No rash nor heady prince shall then rule crave, each good will its arbitrament shall have, and the joy promised of as old as doom to the heavens' guest shall in its beacon come. Then shall the breeding mares that benumbed were, like royal palfreys, ride triumphant there. And this continue shall from time to time, till Mars be fettered for an unknown crime. Then shall one come who others will surpass, delightful, pleasing, matchless, full of grace. Cheer up your hearts, approach to this repast, all trusty friends of mine, for he's deceased. Who would not for a world return again, so highly time shall past be cried up then? He who was made of wax shall lodge each member close by the hinges of a block of timber. We then no more shall master, woot the swagger who the alarum bell holds out. Could one seize on the dagger which he bears, heads would be free from tingling in the ears, to baffle the whole storehouse of abuses. But thus farewell, Apollo and the Muses. Chapter 3. How Gargantua was carried 11 months in his mother's belly. Guangousier was a good fellow in his time, a notable jester. He loved to drink neat as much as any man that then was in the world, and would willingly eat salt meat. To this intent he was ordinarily well furnished with a gammon of bacon, both of Westphalia, Mayence, and Bayonne, with stored of dried neat tongue, plenty of links, chitterlings, and puddings in their season, together with salt beef and mustard, a good deal of hard roes of powdered mullet called botargos, great provision of sausages, not of Bologna, for he feared the Lombard bacon, but of Bigorre, Longoni, Brenne, and Rouargue. In the vigour of his age he married Gargamel, daughter to the king of the Papillon, a jolly pug and well-mouthed wench. These two did oftentimes do the 2-backed beast together, joyfully rubbing and frotting their bacon against one another, in so far that at last she became great with child of a fair son, and went with him unto the 11th month. For so long, yea, longer may a woman carry her great belly, especially when it is some masterpiece of nature, and a person predestined to the performance in his due time of great exploits. As Homer says, that the child which Neptune begot upon the nymph was born a year after the conception, that is, in the 12th month. For as Aulus Gellius saith, Book 3, this long time was suitable, that was not being sufficient for the forging of Hercules, who cleansed the world of the monsters and tyrants wherewith it was suppressed. My masters, the ancient Pantagruelists, have confirmed that which I say, and withal declared it to be not only possible, but also maintained the lawful birth and legitimation of the infant born of a woman in the 11th month after the decease of her husband. Hippocrates lib de alimento, Plinius lib 7 cap 5, Plautus in his Systelia, Marcus Varro in his satire inscribed the testament, alleging to this the purpose the authority of Aristotle, Censorinus lib dini natali, Aristi lib 7 cap 3 and 4, De natura animalium, Gellius lib 3 cap 16, Servius in his exposition upon this verse of Vigil's eclogues, Matra longa decem, etc., and 1,000 other fools, whose number has been increased by the lawyers Fs de suis et leget one intestato paragrapho fin, and in oath de restitut et qua parit in si mensa. Moreover, upon these grounds, they have foisted in their robi de lade called the Lapitura Live Law, Gallus FF de lib s post 1 sept FF de stat hom, and for some laws which at this time I dare not name, by means whereof the honest widows may without danger play at the close buttock game with might and main and as hard as they can for the space of the first 2 months after the decease of their husbands. I pray you, my good lusty springle lads, if you find any of these females that are worth the pains of untying the codpiece joint, get up, ride upon them, and bring them to me, for if they happen within the 3rd month to conceive, the child should be heir to the deceased, if before he died he had no other children, and the mother shall pass for an honest woman. When she's known to have conceived, thrust forward boldly, spare her not whatever betide you, seeing the paunch is full. As Julia, the daughter of the Emperor Octavian, never prostituted herself to her belly bumpers, but when she found herself with child after the manner of ships that receive not their steersmen till they have their ballast and lading, and if any blame them for this their rata-coniculation and reiterated lechery upon their pregnancy and big-belliedness, seeing beasts in the like exigent of their fullness, will never suffer the male masculine to encroach them. Their answer will be, that those are beasts, but they are women, very well skilled in the pretty veils and small fees of the pleasant trade and mystery of superfetation, as Populaire heretofore answered, according to the relation of Macrobius lib 2 Saturnal. If the devil will not have them to bag, he must wring hard the spigot and stop the bunghole. Chapter 4. How Gargamel, being great with Gargantua, did eat a huge deal of tripes. The occasion and manner how Gargamel was brought to bed and delivered of a child was thus, and if you do not believe it, I wish your bumgut fall out and make an escapade. Her bumgut, indeed, or fundament, escaped her in an afternoon on the 3rd day of February, with having eaten at dinner too many godabilios. Godabilios are the fruits of Quiros. Quiros are in ox stalls or in the fresh Guima meadows. Guima meadows are those that for their fruitfulness may be mowed twice a year. Of those fat beeves they had killed 367,014 to be salted at Shrovetide, that in the entering of the spring they might have plenty of powdered beef wherewith to season their mouths at the beginning of their meals and to taste their wine the better. They had abundance of tripes, as you've heard, and they were so delicious that everyone licked his fingers. But the mischief was this, that for all the men could do, there was no possibility to keep them long in that relish, for in a very short while they would have stunk, which would have been an undecent thing. It was therefore concluded that they should be all of them gulched up without losing anything. To this effect they invited all the burghers of Sinais, of Suy, of the Roche Clement, of Vaugaudry, without omitting the Coudray, Montpensier, and the Guy de Ville, and their neighbours, all stiff drinkers, brave fellows, and good players at the Kyles. The good men Grangousier took pleasure in their company, and commanded there should be no want, nor pinching of anything. Nevertheless, he bade his wife eat sparingly, because she was near her time, and that these tripes were not very commendable meat. They would fain, said he, be at the chewing of the ordure, that would eat the case wherein it was. Notwithstanding these admonitions, she did eat 16 quarters, 2 bushels, 3 pecks, and a pipkinful. Oh, the fair fecality wherewith she swelled by the ingrediency of such shit and stuff. After dinner they all went out in a hurl to the grove of the willows, where on the green grass, to the sound of the merry flutes and pleasant bagpipes, they danced so gallantly that it was a sweet and heavenly sport to see them so frolic. Chapter 5. Should really be pissed by now, but it's terrifying to go out. Then they did fall upon the chat of victuals and some belly furniture to be snatched at in the very same place, which purpose was no sooner mentioned, but forthwith began flagons to go, gammons to trot, goblets to fly, great bowls to ting, glasses to ring. Draw, reach, fill, mix, give it me without water. So, my friend, so whip me off this glass neatly, bring me hither some claret. drink so currently as I would. You catch the cold, gammer, yea, forsooth, sir, by the belly of Sanct Buff, let us talk of our drink. I never drink but at my hours like the Pope's mule, and I never drink but in my breviary like a fair father guardian. Which was first, thirst or drinking? Thirst, for who in the time of innocence would have drunk without being athirst? Nay, sir, it was drinking, for privatio pris opponit habitum. I'm learned, you see. Fecunde calices, quem non fecere discertum. We poor innocents drink but too much without thirst. Not I, truly, who am a sinner, for I never drink without thirst, either present or future. To prevent it, as you know, I drink from thirst to come. I drink eternally. This is me an eternity of drinking and drinking of eternity. Let us sing, let us drink, and tune up our roundelays. Where's my funnel? What, it seems I do not drink but by an attorney. Do you wet yourselves to dry, or do you dry to wet you? Pish, I understand not the rhetoric theoric, I say, but I help myself somewhat by the practice. Based, enough, I sup, I wet, I humect, I moisten my gullet, I drink, and all for the fear of dying. Drink always, and you shall never die. If I drink not, I am aground, dry, gravelled, and spent. I'm stark without drink, and my soul ready to fly into some marsh amongst frogs. The soul never dwells in a dry place, drouth kills it. Oh, you butlers, creators of new forms, make me of no a drinker, a perennity and everlastingness of sprinkling and bedewing me through these my parched and sinewy bowels. He drinks in vain that feels not the pleasure of it. This entereth into my veins, the pissing tools and urinal vessels shall have nothing of it. I would willingly wash the tripes of the calf which I apparelled this morning. I've pretty well now ballasted my stomach and stuffed my paunch. If the papers of my bonds and bills could drink as well as I do, my creditors would not want for wine when they come to see me, or when they are to make any formal exhibition of their rights to do what with me they can demand. This hand of yours spoils your nose. Oh, how many other such will enter before this go out? What, drink so shallow? It is enough to break both girds and petrol. This is called a cup of dissimulation or flagonly hypocrisy. What difference is there between a bottle and a flagon? Great difference, for the bottle is stopped and shut up with a stopple, but the flagon with a vice. Le bouteille fermée à bouchon et le flacon à vie. Bravely and well played upon the words. Our fathers drank lustily and emptied their cans. Well cacked, well sung. Come on, let us drink. Will you send nothing to the river? Here's one going to wash the tripes. I drink no more than a sponge. I drink like a Templar knight, and I tanquam sponsus, and I sic at terra sine aqua. Give me a synonym for a gammon of bacon. It is the compulsory of drinkers. It is a pulley. By a pulley rope, wine is let down into a cellar, and by a gammon into the stomach. Hey now, boys, hither, thither, some drink, some drink. There is no trouble to it. Respite personam pro pune duas, but non est in usu. If I could get up as well as I can swallow down, I'd be long ere now, very high in the air. Thus became Tom Tosspot rich, thus went into the tailor's stitch, thus did Bacchus conquer the Indy, thus philosophy Melindy. A little rain allays a great deal of wind, long tippling breaks the thunder. But if there came such liquor from my ballock, would you not willingly thereafter suck the udder whence it issued? Here, page, Phil, I prithee, forget me not when it comes to my turn, and I will enter the election I've made of thee into the very register of the heart. Sup Guio and spare not, there is somewhat in the pot, I appeal from thirst and disclaim its jurisdiction. Page, sue out my appeal form. This remnant in the bottom of the glass must follow its leader. I was wont heretofore to drink out all, but now I leave nothing. Let us not make too much haste. It is requisite we carry all along with us. Hey day, we are tribes fit our sport, and in earnest, excellent Godabilios of the Dunnocks, you know, with the black streak. Oh, for God's sake, let us lash them soundly, let thriftily. Drink, or I will. No, no, I drink, beseech you, I beseech you. Oh, je vous prie. Sparrows will not eat unless you bob them on the tail, nor can I drink if I not be fairly spoke to. The concavities of my body are like another hell for their capacity. Lagonea dietra, lagon lateras cavetus, edis orcus and eteris alta. There is not a corner nor cunniboro in all my body where this wine doth not ferret out my thirst. Oh, this will bang itself. Hither to seek it. Long glisters of drinking are to be voided without doors. The great God made the planets, and we make the platters neat. I have the word of the gospel in my mouth, Sitio. The stone cold asbestos is not more unquenchable than the thirst of my paternity. Appetite comes with eating, says Angiston, but the thirst goes away with drinking. I have a remedy against thirst, quite contrary to that which is good against the biting of a mad dog. Keep running after a dog, and he will never bite you. Drink always before the thirst, and it will never come upon you. There I catch you, I awake you. Argus had 100 eyes for his sight, a butler should have, like Piarus, 100 hands wherewith to fill his wine indefatigably. Hey, now, now, lads, let us moisten ourselves. It will be time to dry hereafter. White wine, wine, boys. Pour it out in the name of Lucifer. Fill here, you fill and fill. Peace gods you are, fill it be full. My tongue peels. Loans tweak to thee, countryman. I drink to thee, good fellow. Comrade to thee, lusty, lively. Ha, la, la, that was drink to some purpose and bravely gulped over. Oh, lacrima Christ, it is of the best grape. In faith, pure Greek, Greek. Oh, the fine white wine. Upon my conscience, it is a kind of taffetas wine. Hin, hin. It is of one ear, well wrought, and of good wool. Courage, comrade, up thy heart, Billy. We will not be beasted at this bout, for I've got one trick. Hex hock in hock. There is no enchantment nor charm there. Every one of you hath seen it. My apprenticeship is out, and I am a free man at this trade. I am a prestamas, prestramis, imistrapas, prish brum, I should say, master past. Oh, the drinkers, though, that ever dry, oh, poor thirsty souls, good page, my friend, fill me here some, and crown the wine, I pray thee, like a cardinal, natura abhorrent vacuum. Would you say that a fly could drink in this? This is after the fashion of Switzerland. Clear off supernaculum. Come, therefore, blades, to this divine liquor and celestial juice. Swill it over heartily, and spare not. It is a decoction of nectar and ambrosia. Chapter 6. Did really, really rather make me want some wine, this sequence. Hmm. Chapter 6, which details how Gargantua was born in a strange manner. Whilst they were on this discourse and pleasant tattle of drinking, Gargamel began to be a little unwell in her lower parts, whereupon Grangousier arose from the grass and fell to comfort her very honestly and kindly, suspecting that she was in travail, and told her that it was best for her to sit down upon the grass under the willows, because she was very like shortly to see young feet, and that therefore it was convenient she should pluck up her spirits, and take good heart of new at the fresh arrival of a baby, saying to her withal that although the pain was somewhat grievous to her, it would be of short continuance, and that the succeeding joy would quickly remove that sorrow, in such sort that she could not so much as remember it. On with a sheep's courage, quoth he. Dispatch this boy, and we will speedily fall to work of making another. Ah, she said, so well as you speak at your own ease, you that are men, well, in the name of God, I'll do my best, seeing that you will have it, would so, but would to God it were cut off from you. What? Said Grangousier. Huh, said she, you are a good man indeed, you understand it well enough. What, my member, said he. By the goat's blood, if it please you, that shall be done instantly, because cause bring hither a knife. Alas, said she, the Lord forbid, and prayed to Jesus forgive me. I did not say it from my heart, therefore let it alone, and do not it either more nor less any kind of harm for me speaking to you so. But I'm like to have work enough to do today, and for all your member, God bless you in it. Courage, courage, said he, take you no care of that matter, let the foremost oxen do the work. I will yet go to drink one whiff more, and if in the meantime anything befall you that may require my presence, I will be so near to you that, at the first whistling in your fist, I shall be with you forthwith. A little while after she began to groan, lament, and cry. Then suddenly came the midwives from all quarters, who, groping her below, found some pelodries, which was a certain filthy stuff, and of a taste truly bad enough. This they thought had been the child, but it was her fundament that was slipped out with the mollification of a straight entrail, which you called the bumgut, and that merely by eating of too many tripes, as we've shown you before. Whereupon an ugly old trot in the company, who had the repute of an expert she-physician, and was come from Brispay near to the Saint-Genou, 60 years before, made her so horrible a restrictive and binding medicine, and whereby all her laris, arse-pipes, and conduits were so opulated, stopped, obstructed, and contracted, that you could hardly have opened and enlarged them with your teeth, which is a terrible thing to think upon. Seeing the devil at the Mass of St. Martin's was puzzled with the like tasks, then with his teeth he lengthened out the parchment, whereon he wrote the tittle-tattle of two young mangy whores. By this inconvenience the cotyledons of her matrix were presently loosed, through which the child sprang up and leaped, and so, entering into the hollow vein, she did climb by the diaphragm even above her shoulders, where the vein divides itself into two, and from thence, taking his way towards the left side, issued forth at her left ear. As soon as he was born, he cried not as other babies do, mears, 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 but with a high, sturdy, and big voices shout. Some drink, some drink, some drink, as inviting all the world to drink with him. The noise hereof was so extremely great that it was heard in both the countries at once of